Well, welcome everyone. Hi everybody. I'm Lynn Woodland. Welcome to the first session of the spring quarter of the Miracles course. And let's begin by setting an intention here, because we're really starting a whole new phase of our work together. So just let your body and your mind relax. Get comfortable in your seat. Close your eyes. And just take a couple of deep, full breaths. Just breathe yourself fully present in your body, present in this moment. And just imagine as you relax more that you have left reality as you've known it behind. It's just left it outside the room, outside the building, and entered a space where anything is possible. Just imagine your highest heart's desires are not only possible, but within reach. And you don't even need to believe this. Just imagine what it would feel like if you did. If you believed beyond a shadow of a doubt that all of a sudden a portal has been opened to this amazing world of the miraculous where anything can happen. And you don't have to believe it, just see how your body would feel, how your thinking would shift, how everything would just transform inside of you if you believe that. And just let excitement well up, let anticipation grow as you just imagine the possibility of all things. All things are possible. You don't even know what's going to happen. You just know it's going to be wonderful. And now hold the intention for every single person here. Those you may know from somewhere, those you don't know at all, maybe those you've seen on screen before. Maybe you're new here, you don't know anyone. But imagine that all of these people here are your fellow journeyers and friends, and hold an intention for all of us that miracles are now unfolding. And know that they're now doing the same for you. And then take a deep breath and open your eyes. So, as we start a whole new season, just a little bit of background. The Miracles course is basically a year-long comprehensive program of weekly spiritual lessons and personal growth work, exercises for living a miraculous life. Now, along with these live classes, the course also includes weekly written materials that are quite extensive. I think some of you have gone in there and read them, I hope. And we also have recorded some of the meditations that we use with a nice sound studio with a good sound quality and music bed. And you can access all of this on my website. I'll explain how at the end. Every week you get a code to access a page that gives you really unlimited access to all of these materials. And I'm going to ask everybody to mute yourself. I'm just muting some of you right now. If I haven't muted you already, just mute yourself. Now because it's a year-long course, the course works with a circular curriculum that uses the seasons as a template for wholeness. Just because the way the cycles of nature just really beautifully portray all the growth archetypes of the human experience. And the darker seasons of fall and winter that we're just coming out of. We haven't quite come out of them yet. We're just about to. The winter season and fall, but especially winter, is a time for pulling in, for internalizing, for releasing our attachment to the material world and birthing things within, spiritual gifts, rather than pushing to make things happen in the outer world. Now, in the winter quarter that's just ended, the emphasis of this course is on spiritual renewal, on listening to inner guidance, on spiritual empowerment, on dreaming the dreams that we will bring into manifestation in the spring and summer seasons. And the last quarter ended with a month dedicated to love and relationships, including a lot of exercises for manifesting the relationships that will best serve us. So now as we close in on the spring equinox, it's getting closer and closer. It's just a few weeks away now. And we move into the light-filled seasons of spring and summer. The emphasis on the course is going to be on growing our dreams in tangible form. And we'll address the metaphysical principles of attraction, the law of attraction, on just manifesting using metaphysical powers, and on attracting prosperity in the way that will best serve us, among other things. And in the circular curriculum, the work of one season just naturally lays the foundation for the next, which with each piece being an integral part of the whole. And it's a program that's really about transforming life, the quality of life, not just creating an isolated result. And it really doesn't have a beginning or an end. It's much more about the journey and the present moment than the destination. That's why you can, basically drop in anytime you want and start anytime you want. There isn't any time of the year that I say go, and that's when the Miracles course starts. And this is the kind of journey that delivers more than we imagined. Not just the limit of what we can currently imagine. And that's a really big difference between what I think of as miracle making and simple manifesting the law of attraction techniques. I think a big reason that a lot of the popularized techniques on working with the law of attraction don't work as predictably as advertised is that they emphasize creating isolated results. They don't necessarily address the whole context. To use a gardening analogy, since we're all about the seasons here, they teach how to plant the seed, but not always how to cultivate the soil. And planting a seed doesn't guarantee that the seed's going to grow, A seed does have a truly amazing ability to take on a life of its own and transform into something really huge all on its own steam. But at the same time, for that miraculous process to kick in, the conditions need to be right. The soil, the climate, and all kinds of environmental factors all have to be right. So the spring quarter of the Miracles course begins with the work of manifesting our heart's desires by metaphorically cultivating the soil. which isn't always the fun part. It's not the part where we go out and we pluck the tomatoes. It's the part where we dig the dirt. We come in, we're dirty, we're sweaty. Oh, poor Bill. That's my husband's job. I sit on the front porch and say, "That's really nice, honey." And I sip on a glass of wine. I have the best husband, I swear. But we're really deep in it, living in Florida. He is really picking the dirt. I won't use any we. And that's what we're going to do here by addressing some of the foundational aspects of personality and behavior that just make us more effective at achieving our goals. Now, we also did a lot of that in the fall season for those who've attended in the fall. I know I've been, absent for a while. Some of you may not have experienced that cycle of this work. But that's when we do a lot of really going down into, the dark regions of our shadow to unearth what we're doing unconsciously to trip ourselves up. We do that in a really different way in the spring. And this includes things like clarifying intention, developing motivation, cultivating faith, breaking disempowering habits, awakening intuition, among, a bunch of other things that all are parts of personal mastery. And that's going to make the manifesting work we do in the late spring and summer all the more effective. So March is really a transitional month where winter gives way to spring, and that hibernating and preserving of inner warmth that characterizes winter really transforms into a more outward phase of activity and visible growth. And even if you live where I used to live in Minnesota, like Sheldon lives, some others of you may live, there's just the light, the changes in the light, just gives rise to a quickening as the light builds. And at the spring equinox, light overtakes the darkness for the first time in 6 months. And as the world around us goes through this dramatic shift in emphasis from dark to light, it just makes sense that we would feel it in some profound, even if it's still subliminal kind of way. Just as the dark of winter urges us to turn our attention inward and dream, with the light of spring, we start to wake up. We come out of ourselves and we think about planting new seeds, literally and metaphorically. Even in Minnesota, that's when we started pouring through our gardening catalogs. Like, what are we going to grow this year, Bill? And yet, we lost Sheldon, Mr. Minnesota. In a lot of places, this time of year really can be the ugliest of seasons. Like melting snow or spring rains can give rise to a season of mud. And in climates where snow has covered the ground for months, some of us have definitely been there and are there, suddenly, everything just looks dead and brown and it's all exposed, along with all the litter and garbage that was never collected before it snowed. It can be a real messy time. And as a metaphor for personal and spiritual growth, this is the phase where we compare the beautiful visions we've had during the winter season of dreaming. I think of that related to, how around Christmas, the whole world is lit up. There's like pretty colors everywhere. Everywhere you go, it's like, oh, it's so pretty, so pretty, so pretty. And then especially in Minnesota, that just turns into, oh God, it's all mud and brown and dead and garbage on the street everywhere. So it's where we compare, the dreams we have for ourselves to the outer reality, where we want to go compared to where we are now. And we see how much work is ahead of us if we want to make our dreams real. So consequently, this not quite winter, not quite spring season, right between dreaming and planting is really a good time for careful preparation, just to ensure that the growth that's about to happen is going to produce a garden we want, and not just an unintended mass of weeds or sunflowers that grow like this big that surround your favorite plant that's only this big that you planted right in the middle of it. I did that with a garden one year where I just threw everything into the ground without really thinking about what grows big, what's little, what's really going to be beautiful, what's going to be kind of a little bit ugly. And so in this metaphor for life, the seeds we plant and then the garden may become, for better or worse, start with our thinking. If we're using this as really a metaphor for our internal being. Erwin Schrödinger, who was one of the pioneers of modern physics, even said, consciousness is that by which the world first becomes manifest, by which indeed we quite calmly say it first becomes present, i.e., that's, kind of the law of attraction, just said very concisely by a modern physicist. The end of that quote is that the world consists of elements of consciousness. Okay, that's the end of the quote. Consciousness becomes all the elements of our world. And, it's easy to deny this connection between consciousness and the material world. We often entertain thoughts mindlessly or toss them about recklessly, through our words, because just like a handful of seeds, that we might have sitting in the palm of our hand, just little bitty seeds, or just, sprinkled on the earth, just, sprinkle. They might seem so tiny and inconsequential. Like, how could that little seed really, expand to fill my garden and then some? But, any good gardener knows the potential of that teeny little seed of practically nothing to grow into like a 2-foot-long zucchini at the end of summer. Or the really tender, kind of pretty greenery of spring to become this really awful, unmanageable garden weeds if it's just left to do its thing. So what if we had the wisdom to see our own thoughts like this? So, let's give that a little bit of thought. Turn your attention inward for a moment. Just close your eyes if you want. And reflect on where your attention goes when you're not actively engaged in some specific mental focus. When you're alone, driving in your car maybe, or when you're just taking a little break from work, when you're maybe just in the shower, just you and running water, or when you're maybe just cooking dinner, when you're just not engaged and your mind isn't engaged. What goes on in your thoughts? Do you tend to dwell more on everything wrong in your life? Do you have recurring resentments or old hurts or worries about the future that just crowd in there when you're not busy focused on something else? Or do your thoughts just automatically fill with things you love? Happy successes, things you're just feel grateful for, love that you've shared, pleasant anticipation of the future, excitement about your dreams and what you're creating in life. Now, if you looked at each thought going through your mind as a seed destined to grow the events of your future, how do you feel about the quality of seeds you're planting? In fact, if you look at your current reality, reflecting the seeds you planted a while back, what are they telling you about your thinking? Are your thoughts growing success and joy and love? Or are they growing more bitterness and pain and disappointment? So just open your eyes again. And, no judgment. You don't judge what you maybe noticed as, oh, this is where my head tends to go, for better or worse. Most of us have certain patterns of thought that are so habitual we're not even fully aware of them. And these thoughts that pop into mind when we're not trying to think about anything, often reflect learned habits probably acquired when we were really young. We may have habits of worry or habits of optimism or habits of faith, just trusting the process of life, or of fear or of bitterness. The thought pattern that said life isn't fair. The areas of our lives that flow easily and reflect our, that really work well, they're all reflecting our positive automatic thoughts. And on the other hand, we might have certain areas of life that just flow smoothly, but at the same time, we may tell ourselves many times a day that life is unfair, that we're unsafe, that we don't deserve to be happy, and we attract a lot of circumstances that reflect that back to us. And we may be so unaware of this inner conversation that we don't even call these messages thoughts. We call them reality. And we assume to be true this reality because that's what we see around us. That's what we keep calling into being by thinking these thoughts over and over again. Now, monitoring every random thought can be a pretty daunting task. It's because so much of it is unconscious and just barely conscious. And by the time we're aware, we've already been thinking that thought for 5 minutes. But a much more doable exercise that can really powerfully affect our automatic thinking is to simply monitor what we say out loud. So we're going to start the spring season. Well, actually, I want to start it before I even get into this exercise. Everybody close your eyes again. Close your eyes again. Take a breath, nice deep breath. And maybe when you heard me say, these are the seasons when we manifest our highest heart's desires, when we bring our dreams into tangible reality, maybe you had some, oh goody, I want this, I want that. So check in and see what is it that your heart is really calling out for right now? What are you excited about? What's something that you just jump up and down in glee and joy to have or do or be or experience? And it's not what you think, you should have as your highest heart's desire. It's what the little inner kid in you really jumps up and down and says, I want this, I want this, I want this. Don't make me really happy. It might be the thing that you think of as maybe a little bit out of reach. Don't make it so abstract that, it's not really yours. Like, oh, I want peace on earth, goodwill to all humans. That's a little too big. Make sure it's really personal. This is about you, your highest heart's desire. Make it as specific as you can, too. Knowing that when we get a specific in mind in true manifesting work, that's the starting point, because what we actually call in may be much greater than that. But see where your starting point is. Something that just really tickles your fancy in the best of ways to imagine yourself having, doing, being And then just step into it for a moment. Imagine what it would feel like to have it, to experience it. See it all around you so that it's so clear and real and vivid that you can reach out and touch things in your environment. That it's vivid, it's got color, it's got form. Maybe it has smell and sound. And you feel it in your body. You just feel the joyfulness of it, the well-being of it, the happiness of it. It just becomes very real. And this is the beautiful garden. This is the beautiful garden that you're planting tonight. So open your eyes again and know that every beautiful garden starts with a big old, bed of dirt that hasn't even been plowed up yet. So that's where we go to now. And the exercise, see, that is where we're going, that beautiful flower garden that you just imagined. This exercise, this lesson tonight is about setting that intention and going about it with really a quite challenging exercise. That if you do it, absolutely, it's going to take you very far. I promise you that. This is an exercise that will do wonders. And some of you may have experienced this before with me. I call it the no whining exercise. And here I'm giving the assignment to practice it for at least a month in an absolute way. And I'll tell more about that, what it means, what the parameters are. Now, the first time I did this myself, I actually made a 3-month commitment to it. I did it in my own workshops. Like, well, what am I thinking? Oh my God. I was opening it up for other people to make these 3-month commitments. And I went first. It's like the things I do to teach what I need to learn and learn what I'm teaching, And and I made a 3-month commitment to do this and to not whine. And I only lasted 15 minutes before I almost broke my commitment and whined. I caught myself just in the nick of time. It was like, I got that far and I caught it back. But it made me instantly aware of how automatic complaining can be. How it even becomes a way of bonding. And interestingly, once I got the hang of not whining, I found that my inner dialogue started changing along with my spoken words. And it just wasn't as satisfying to whine to myself anymore. I kind of caught myself and said, no. And after practicing this really for just a few weeks, I noticed that all kinds of things that I usually struggle with and things that seemed like climbing Mount Everest hurdles were just falling into place with this ease that felt miraculous. This was when I was publishing my very first book, or wanting to publish it, a book that's now out of print because it was a terrible book, but it was my first. And I wanted to get it published, dang it. And the way to the means just whoosh, just opened out of nowhere. But it also, along with the great miracles that came out of it, it also forced me to find a whole different way of sharing with my friends that wasn't based on commiserating. Now, I didn't always become, a hide my feelings, always smiling Pollyanna. But when I did share something that might have been painful in my life, I did it in a way that left me feeling more empowered afterward. I reached out for help. Not just sympathy. And what's more, and which was really productive, really interesting what came out of that. But what's more, some of my friends later reported that their words and thinking process also underwent a change too, because I shared with them what I was doing and they realized, can't whine to her anymore. And it just, they stopped whining to me in response to mine not whining back. And this really enhanced the quality of our relating. And it had this ripple effect on my friends that they took with me beyond our interaction. So in preparation for this whole new growing season that we're moving into, for the manifesting work that we're going to do very shortly in the season, your first assignment, as I said, is to practice this no whining exercise for a month. Now, the time frame isn't to suggest that, you should just go back to whining in April. It's really about using the month as a long enough period to break some old habits and set some new ones in place. So the idea here is to start a new habit of thinking and speaking. And furthermore, having a clear-cut start and finish date to the assignment as a way of strengthening the power of your word and of your intention and of your will in a way that just trying to do the exercise as well as you can for as long as you can until you forget about it really doesn't have the same impact at all. Because every time you make a clear commitment to something and keep it, you strengthen your ability to make things happen in the way you intend them to. And we're going to go more deeply into this principle in another lesson. But this is one of the foundational principles of metaphysics/mastery 101. So recognizing that this exercise is as much about strengthening your will and your intention as it is about changing your thinking, let's go a little bit deeper and get clear about what this actually means. Here's how this works. Starting now and continuing for 1 month, let go, like here we are, March 1st, all through March, easy peasy, end of March. That's your assignment. For 1 month, let go of all talk and all conversations in which you present yourself as an unfortunate victim of circumstances beyond your control. Now, if you slip and catch yourself in a whine, now redirect it by acknowledging on some level your own participation in bringing this situation about, and share what you're willing to do to change your experience. Or you could share what hidden lessons or blessings you're receiving from this kind of sucky experience. It's okay to say this really sucks. I can see maybe my doing blah, blah, blah help call this into being. And, I think if I just turn my thinking around, if I just, shift my mood a bit, if I just take certain actions, I think I can take my power back here. That's different from saying, life sucks. Do you know what happened to me? Do you know what they did? Do you believe that person did blah, blah, blah? Have you ever had somebody be such a bitch like that? That is such a bitch. I bet they drive everybody crazy. That is whining. That is whining. And you can maybe, if you say, I just had this really sucky experience. Well, last week I had a troll. I could say, do you believe that? Do you believe somebody trolled us? Like, that was like the most horrible thing. Like, I'm just outraged. I was like, or I could say, I am so honored that somebody deigned me to be interesting enough to troll. I've arrived. I've made it. I'm a success. You know, we can deal with things in different ways. And you might even ask the person you're speaking to help. You know, the help might be to change your situation or just change your state of mind. So in other words, it's okay to feel bad and talk about it. And when you do, however, speak as though it's an experience that you had some participation in creating. You know, like with my troll, I could say, okay, how is this reflecting some aspect of my thinking that has been a little, you know, out of sorts? How have I been kind of a raging bitch? You know, I have that in me, believe it or not. How can I tone her down a bit? You know, so, and I looked at it as, you know, something I have the power to change. Ooh, block. Remove, block. Oh, I have the power here. And something you're learning something from. You know, so it is, I'll say it again, it's an experience that you had some participation in creating. You have the power to change, and you're learning something from it. So reframe, you know, the sucky things in life to see them through those lenses. And even if you don't believe it, speaking as though you have power in your situation will help it to be so. That is, too, a metaphysical principle of mastery, learning how to decree, like I am not the victim here, I have power here, is in a way speaking from your solar plexus as a powerful human, and it just changes your vibration so that you attract really different circumstances. Because the less you think and speak as a victim, the less you're going to find yourself in that role. Now, to up your the effectiveness of this assignment, again, I'm saying do it for 1 month in an absolute way as a symbolic act, meaning that you're going to give it out added power by giving it a bigger significance. Tell yourself that if you are willing to absolutely eliminate victim speech for 1 month, so you're putting a time limit on it. So it's not climbing Mount Everest. It's just monitoring your speech for 31 days. If you can do that, absolutely, then you can manifest the highest good that you most desire. Remember that beautiful flower garden we just envisioned? Tie it to that this exercise now in your mind gets intrinsically, integrally tied to that beautiful flower garden. Monitoring your speaking is plowing up the ground, planting the beautiful flower seeds, and assume that there is truth to this so that when you're tempted to cheat, you just really want to let forth a whine. Your question to yourself becomes, if my most heartfelt dreams coming to fruition depended upon me choosing not to complain about my life right now, what do I choose? What do I love more, complaining or having my heart's desire? Now, this total, absolute, never cheating even once aspect of the assignment is important because it strengthens your focus and your will, making whatever you set your mind to easier to accomplish. Now, what happens if you do slip and whine? You just do it without even thinking. It's like, oh, too late. I've done it. I whined. Can I call that horse back into the barn? Well, you can actually, in a couple of ways. One is that you can just go back to the person you whined to and cancel your old statement with a truer one, as with, you know, when I was complaining to you today, really the truth is that I have a lot of power in this situation. I can change it in this way. I'm actually learning a lot from it. And the next time you catch me whining about it, would you remind me of this? that's one thing you can do. You can actually pull that horse back into the barn. The other thing you can do, if you don't want to go that route, is you can just begin again. You can recommit for another 1 month period. Now, if you just keep slipping and slipping and slipping, and you just can't seem to get through a month, it may be that some part of you just isn't quite ready to have the heart's desire you say you want, that you've set an intention around tonight. There could be some payoff for you in not having that manifest too quickly or at all. And in another lesson, we're going to go into the idea a little more deeply that there could be payoffs to staying where we are, to not, to spinning wheels, to remaining stuck. That sometimes there's a reason for that. That's, not in a judgmental sort of way, like, oh, look at me, I'm screwing up again. But there's some reason for it. We can understand that and meet that need in another way. We don't need to stay stuck. We're going to look at that in another lesson. But if you find that it just happens again and again and again, I just keep whining, I just can't break this habit, there may be some of that going on for you. So there's more to the lesson for this week. Here are matches for the lesson. Gosh. Siri just started talking to me. I just started, check the time. Shush, Siri. There's more to this lesson, and it's a little beyond what I think we have time for tonight. So do go into the printed materials and read them. They actually lend themselves better to doing them with writing, in writing anyway. I think you'll get a little more out of it if you just take time by yourself and, just do some writing on it. But now I want to take questions, and I have one last piece. I want to leave everybody with a message to take into this new manifesting season.
Thank you.
Well, what I want to do before we end, we have started the process of really cultivating our garden. And this whole next 6 months is going to be about manifesting our highest heart's desires in all kinds of ways, including prosperity later in the summer and manifesting miracles and calling particular goals into being. So I wanted to use one of my little oracle message tools that has, I think maybe 120 different messages. And I think some of you are familiar with this. About a third of them are blessings. I'm just going to pick them randomly because, random synchronicity has a way of just being so right on, I've found. Just see if, these don't speak to you. If they don't, just keep it in mind. You might want to write down your message. Keep it in mind, maybe put it on the fridge. See if it becomes more meaningful in the coming months. Usually they just seem to really tell us something we need. And what I want us to imagine is that we're going to get some message that our higher guidance wants us to know, because it's going to help us call in the garden we envision tonight, that and better. And a third of these are blessing messages. And if you pull a blessing, it means that you already have this, that this is a big strength you have, a resource you have to draw upon. And recognizing it, owning it, embracing it, receiving it, giving it, just being it is going to be part of, an important part of achieving the what you want in coming months. Now, another third of them are lessons. And if you pull a lesson, it means that there's something important for you to learn on this path toward calling in your garden, maybe what plants go where in your garden, for example. There's something you need to learn, and you now are ready to learn it, and you have all the resources you need to learn it. And learning it is what you need to take you there. Now, some of them, a third of them, are affirmations of release. And these are healing messages. They say that you are now ready to release something that's been limiting you so that you can now be free in a particular way. And that's what I'm going to read. I'm going to pick one for each of you. And this is what's going to take us into our garden. So I'm going to just go through my screen as I see you. This lesson has come to you because you are now ready to learn something new. Trust that you will be guided in this process, and the new skills you develop will lead you to your highest good. Now, here's the lesson. You are divinely guided to learn the spiritual lesson of letting go of your attachment to outcomes. The lesson of letting go of your attachment to outcomes. And you have an affirmation of release. So you have received this message because you are now ready to let go of something that has burdened you. Don't resist. Soften, surrender, let go, and let your healing begin. And here is the affirmation of release. I now release the burden of being certain so that I am free to explore new possibilities. I'll read that again. I now release the burden of being certain so that I am free to explore new possibilities. Next, and you too have an affirmation of release. And here's your affirmation. I now release the burden of being perfect so that I am free to be perfectly myself. I now release the burden of being perfect so that I am free to be perfectly myself. You have an affirmation of release. And your affirmation, your healing affirmation is, I now release the burden of trying to control the behavior of others so that I am free to experience the joy of unconditional giving and receiving. That's a long one. I'm going to read it again. I now release the burden of trying to control the behavior of others so that I am free to experience the joy of unconditional giving and receiving. And let's do one for Mr. Bill, who's my tech guy behind the scenes. You have a lesson, Bill. You are divinely guided to learn the spiritual lesson of releasing what you no longer need. And I picked mine earlier. I received a blessing. My blessing was validation. Very happy about that. So I would really, write them down, put them on your fridge, forget about them for a while, see if they become more meaningful to you in time, if it's not right on the mark right now. Especially as it relates to, whatever you dreamed up at the beginning of this lesson. Anything left before we call it an evening? Now I'm going to say goodnight, my lovelies. I love and bless you.
Love and bless you, Lynn.
Thank you for everything.
Love and blessings. Thank you so much. See you next week, Lynn.
See you next week.
Be happy.